So, what if I told you that one of the most brilliant masterclasses in tech startup strategy doesn't actually come from, a billionaire in Silicon Valley?
Right, which is where everyone usually looks.
Exactly. But instead, it comes from a tiny agricultural village in India with a total budget of roughly $2,400 US.
I mean, it completely upends how we are taught to think about entrepreneurship.
It really does.
We are just so conditioned to believe that innovation, especially in the tech sector, inherently requires this massive upfront influx of venture capital just to even get off the ground.
Yeah, you think you need millions just to start. But then you read a business plan that just shatters that expectation entirely.
Completely shatters it.
So for you listening, our mission on today's deep dive is to dissect this incredibly detailed feasibility report. It's for a computer training center in a village called Arikirevula.
And that's located in Andhra Pradesh, India, right?
Yes, exactly. And the goal here is to show you how someone plans to launch a highly profitable, socially impactful business on a micro budget of just 2 lakh.
Which is 200,000 rupees.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack this. Setting up a fully functioning tech center in a rural village with minimal capital sounds honestly almost impossible on its face.
It does sound impossible.
So how does the consulting framework outlined in our sources actually make this work?
Well, it works because the author of this report isn't just, making educated guesses.
Right.
They are actually applying a really rigorous McKinsey-style structured problem-solving framework to this rural Indian context.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it comes down to a few core principles. First, there's what strategists call MECE.
MECE.
Exactly. It stands for mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive.
Meaning what exactly?
Basically, it means breaking a complex problem down so thoroughly that you don't miss a single variable, but you also, don't double count anything.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's super structured.
Very structured.
Yeah.
And second, it's heavily hypothesis driven. They identify specific assumptions about the local village economy, and then they test them. And finally, there is this ruthless application of the 80-20 rule.
Ah, right, the Pareto principle.
Exactly. Prioritizing the 20% of effort that yields 80% of the tangible results. It is just an absolute clinic in doing a lot more with a lot less.
That's fascinating. So to really understand the mechanics of this business, we first have to look at the massive shift in the budget from the initial plan.
Right, what the report calls version 1.
Yeah, version 1 versus the revised plan, which is version 2. Because the transformation between these two drafts is basically a financial miracle.
It really is. I mean, it represents a complete category shift in how capital is deployed.
Totally.
Because when you look at version 1, you see a very, very traditional business model.
Yeah, like the initial 2 lakh budget in version 1 was incredibly tight.
Yeah.
And it was heavily eaten up by one-time hardware purchases.
CapEx, basically.
Exactly, capital expenditure. The report shows they had 60,000 rupees allocated just for 6 refurbished desktop computers.
Which is a huge chunk of the budget.
Yeah, huge. And another 18,000 earmarked for basic furniture. Plus all the setup costs for internet and, infrastructure.
Right. It was a classic CapEx-heavy model. You spend the vast majority of your money before you even open the doors for your first student.
Which is so risky.
It introduces a tremendous amount of fragility into the business. I mean, if you deploy all your capital on physical assets before day 1, you have absolutely no buffer.
Yeah.
If enrollment is slow in that first month or, if a computer breaks, you are immediately facing a severe cash flow crisis.
Right. But then we see the version 2 reality, and the entire premise changes.
A massive pivot.
It is. The report outlines that the founder actually already owns the necessary hardware.
Wait, really? Just lying around?
Yeah. They had PCs, laptops, a 100-millipiece internet router, a projector, security cameras, even an air cooler sitting in storage from previous ventures.
Oh, wow.
So the hardware costs in version 2 suddenly dropped to literally 0.
That is incredible. That 0 alters the entire DNA of the business model.
It really does.
Because when your primary equipment cost vanishes, your barrier to entry just plummets.
Totally. And the physical space they secured is just as surprising. Like, the rent for the facility is unimaginably low.
How low are we talking?
They are paying just 3,000 rupees a month. Plus maybe another 1,000 for local amenities and electricity.
Wow.
So their total monthly operational cash burn is literally just 4,000 rupees.
We have to do the math on that because it absolutely dictates their survival.
Yeah, let's break it down.
So with the 4,000 rupee monthly burn rate, the break-even economics become incredibly favorable.
Right.
The center basically achieves positive cash flow the moment they enroll just 5 fee-paying students.
Just 5.
Just 5. Any student after number 5 is pure operating margin.
But wait. I have to push back here for a second.
Go.
If the hardware is basically free and the rent is peanuts, why do we even need the 2 lakh budget?
That's a good question.
Right. Like, couldn't we just bootstrap this with almost nothing? Why park that much cash in a business that only costs 4,000 a month to run?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the 2 lakh is no longer for buying things.
Okay.
It functions entirely as a strategic buffer. By keeping that cash in the business, it transforms into this massive operating war chest.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the report allocates a 78,000 rupee working capital float plus a 40,000 operating reserve.
Wow. Okay, so they have a lot of runway.
Exactly. This means the owner can launch their fee-based training batches from day one without an ounce of financial panic.
That's huge for peace of mind.
It is. They don't have to desperately chase revenue or, slash their prices just to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
It gives them the runway to survive comfortably for 10 to 12 months, which is critical because their ultimate goal involves government scheme reimbursements.
And those take forever.
Precisely. They are notoriously slow to pay out due to layers and layers of bureaucratic auditing.
That makes total sense. So the money is buying time and leverage, not desks and computers.
Exactly.
Okay, so now that we know the center is financially fortified to survive, the next logical question is the demand side.
Right. Who are the students?
Yeah, who are these students and why are they going to hand over their hard-earned money for this training?
Well, to understand the demand, we have to look at the demographic mapping in the report. Because Arikirevula isn't just a random data point.
No, it's not.
It has this really striking demographic anomaly.
Yeah, the data here really stood out to me. The female literacy rate in Arikirevula is 79%.
Which is incredibly high for the region.
Exactly. To put that in perspective for you listening, the state average for Andhra Pradesh is 67%.
Wow.
So you have a rural village sitting a full 12 points higher than the state average.
And when applying that MECE framework we discussed earlier, the strategist doesn't just look at the single village.
Right. They look broader.
Yeah, they map the entire catchment zone.
Right. The report defines the catchment zone as a 10-kilometer radius within the Cover mandal.
And for context, a mandal is essentially a local administrative district or sub-district in India.
Exactly. So within this mandal, you have Arikirevula with a population of about 3,190, plus 5 surrounding villages.
Which are?
Nandamuru, Pasvedala, Thugumi, Damaru, and Dharmavaram.
Right.
So you pull all of that together, and the primary target demographic emerges clearly. It's educated, married women between the ages of 20 and 42.
And we really need to explore why this specific group is the engine of this business model.
Yeah, it's super important.
Because these are women who have completed their intermediate education, and in many cases, they even have college degrees.
Right, they are highly capable.
Very capable. However, due to societal structures, family duties, and, a lack of safe, reliable daily transit, they are geographically bound to their villages.
That makes a lot of sense.
They cannot easily commute to major tech hubs like Hyderabad or Bangalore for a corporate job.
So they're stuck.
Exactly. You have this massive pool of latent talent with nowhere locally to deploy those skills.
Which is exactly where the curriculum design comes in. It is tailored perfectly to the realities of their daily lives.
How so?
Well, Batch 1 is a Women's Virtual Assistant Foundations course.
Okay.
We're talking Microsoft Office, email management, digital payments, and Canva basics.
A very practical skill.
Super practical. And they specifically schedule it in the morning from 9 to 11 a.m. I see. So it fits seamlessly around household schedules and childcare.
That's really smart.
And then they run a second batch in the evening focused on Tally and GST software.
Right. Tally. That's huge in India.
It is. Tally is the ubiquitous accounting software used by almost every small business there. And GST is the National Goods and Services Tax System.
Got it.
So that evening batch targets the staff of local small and medium businesses who need to upgrade their accounting skills.
It aligns supply and demand flawlessly, honestly. But even a well-timed, highly relevant curriculum isn't enough to guarantee long-term success.
No, you need more than that.
You still need an undeniable competitive advantage.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The owner of this training center also owns an existing virtual assistant placement company.
Oh, wow. That's a huge detail.
It's everything. So the top 3 to 5 graduates from these morning batches are absolutely guaranteed part-time virtual assistant jobs right out of the gate.
That is incredible.
It's essentially a farm system for a Major League Baseball team.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks. I mean, you aren't just selling a certificate to hang on a wall, You're selling a guaranteed pipeline to a job.
Yeah.
Which makes every placed graduate a walking billboard.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, closing that employment loop is the ultimate route.
Yeah.
In a rural economy, word of mouth is really the only marketing channel that truly scales.
Because everyone talks.
Everyone talks. A competing franchise center or a standalone computer institute could open across the street with brand new computers, but they cannot replicate a guaranteed local income stream.
Right. They can't promise jobs.
And that creates a revenue flywheel that protects the business from competitors.
That's brilliant. But, having a great product, a protected moat, and a low budget still doesn't solve the initial friction.
What friction is that?
Getting a tight-knit community to actually trust a brand new business.
Right. Trust is hard to build.
Exactly. Which brings us to a fascinating section of the feasibility report. It identifies the business's most undervalued non-financial asset.
And that asset is tied to the physical space itself, right? Or more accurately, the identity of the person who owns that physical space.
Yes. The landlord is the ex-munsif of Arikirevula.
And an ex-munsif is what exactly?
It's a former traditional village magistrate or headman. So someone who holds significant historical and social sway in the community.
Okay, I see.
And it's important to look at this objectively, strictly as a business strategist would. We are neutrally reporting the strategic facts of the report here, not endorsing any political party or caste.
Right, absolutely. We're just looking at the mechanics of the strategy.
Exactly. So the report notes that the landlord belongs to the politically dominant Chowdhury caste, a group heavily connected to the TDP, which is currently the ruling political party in Andhra Pradesh.
Because strategy requires a clear-eyed assessment of the environment you're operating in.
Exactly.
The report outlines highly practical, tangible applications of the landlord's political and social capital to accelerate the business. And it does this across 3 distinct areas.
Right.
The first is community trust transfer.
Yeah, the document explicitly advises the founder to invite the ex-munsif to formally inaugurate the center.
A ribbon-cutting ceremony?
Exactly, alongside the management education officer and leaders from local women's groups. Because in a rural setting, a flyer or a Facebook ad does almost nothing.
Right, it's just noise.
But having the former village headman cut the ribbon, that provides instant institutional endorsement.
It's a huge signal of trust.
And the report estimates that this one 30-minute ceremony literally replaces 50,000 rupees in traditional marketing spend.
That is incredible efficiency.
Yeah.
The second area of acceleration is mobilization. The strategy targets the DWCRA networks.
Wait, DWCRA?
Yes, the development of women and children in rural areas.
Okay, got it.
These are deeply organized, village-level savings and loan groups. They're often referred to as self-help groups, or SHGs.
Right.
A single phone call or introduction from a respected landlord can unlock access to the leadership of these groups across all 5 target villages.
Oh, wow. So they skipped the line.
Exactly. The business bypasses the arduous cold calling phase entirely and gets direct access to their exact target demographic.
That is so smart.
Yeah.
And the third area is navigating the government.
Right.
Because eventually the business wants to be impaneled with the APS-STC.
Which is the State Skill Development Corporation, right?
Yes, the Andhra Pradesh State Skill Development Corporation. Moving paperwork through that bureaucracy typically takes 90 days.
A long time when you're burning cash.
Exactly. But with a landlord who has direct connections to district-level administration, the report projects that timeline can be compressed to just 30 to 45 days.
That is a massive operational advantage.
It is. But wait, I have to ask, isn't relying on a political landlord basically cronyism?
It's a fair question.
Like, it sounds incredibly effective in the short term, but if the TDP loses the next election or the landlord falls out of favor, doesn't this entire center just go out of business? Isn't that a massive vulnerability?
That is a critical observation, and it's exactly why the structured framework includes a dedicated risk dependency matrix.
Oh, so they thought of that.
Absolutely. The report doesn't ignore this vulnerability. It plans for it.
How so?
Well, the prescribed mitigation strategy is to use the landlord's network to sprint as fast as possible for the first 6 months.
Just to get off the ground.
Right. Use that initial momentum to get the doors open and classes filled. But simultaneously, the owner must actively build independent, direct relationships with the APS-SDC officials and the local small business owners.
Essentially, use the introduction, but make sure you own the relationship long term.
Precisely. You extract the initial velocity from the landlord's network, but you deliberately diversify your connections so the business is not permanently anchored to one family's political fortunes.
That is textbook risk management. Speaking of vulnerabilities, though, we really have to talk about the physical setup of this training center.
Ah, yes. The setup.
Because it presents a massive regulatory hurdle. Remember earlier how we said they got the hardware costs down to zero?
Right.
Well, part of that capital efficiency comes from operating on a zero furniture model.
Meaning?
There are no desks. There are no computer chairs. The students just sit on the floor with their laptops.
I mean, from a cash preservation standpoint, it's incredibly smart.
It is.
But from a compliance standpoint, it introduces a really unique risk.
A huge risk. The report notes that to qualify for those lucrative government rural development schemes programs, like the DDU-GKY, which funds rural youth skill training, or the PMKVY, you have to pass a physical inspection by the APS-SDC.
And what does that entail?
Mechanically, this involves government auditors walking into your center with clipboards, checking off square footage, ventilation, and seating capacity.
Right.
If an inspector sees students sitting on the bare floor, they could easily fail the center for having inadequate infrastructure.
And this is where we see a brilliant tactical maneuver. Because when you can't afford to change the physical setup, you have to change the narrative surrounding.
It is the ultimate marketing spin. I love this so much.
It's so good.
The report explicitly instructs the owner not to apologize for the lack of chairs, and certainly not to admit it's a cost-saving measure.
Definitely not.
Instead, they are told to document it and present it as a deliberate, innovative design choice. They are instructed to call it a yoga-style learning environment, utilizing proper seating mats and ergonomic back support cushions.
This perfectly encapsulates that McKinsey and BCG style of strategic thinking.
It really does.
Because it anticipates the inspector's objection before they even walk into the room.
Exactly.
Instead of a deficiency, it becomes a localized feature. You frame it as a bespoke, culturally aligned, low-cost innovation rather than a lack of proper equipment. You just control the frame.
We aren't broke. We're ergonomic.
Exactly.
It's so clever. And they pair this narrative spin with a very disciplined approach to the government schemes themselves.
Right, because there are quite a few of them.
Yeah, the report outlines several acronyms: DDU, GKY, PMKVY, PMGL, BISHA. These are all national and state-level digital literacy programs that pay training centers per student.
And the strategic directive regarding these schemes is really vital here.
Yeah.
A report insists that the owner treat all of these government programs strictly as month 4 plus upside.
Oh, I see.
They are absolutely not to be treated as a month 1 prerequisite.
Because if you sit around waiting for government bureaucracy to clear before you even open your doors, you'll just bleed right through your capital.
Exactly. You'll run out of money.
But by launching the fee-paying batches on day one, utilizing that 78,000 rupee working capital float, the owner dictates their own timeline.
They stay in control.
Right. They survive on the 4,000 monthly burn and aren't left at the mercy of a delayed government reimbursement cycle.
It is also worth noting how close they are to compliance without spending a fortune.
What do you mean?
Well, for the DDU-GKY scheme, which is highly lucrative and pays out between 25,000 to 35,000 rupees per trainee, the only real infrastructure gap they have is a biometric or facial recognition system to track student attendance.
Oh, wow. And they can easily cover that, right? For
Yes.
just 3,000 to 5,000 rupees out of that 40,000 contingency reserve we mentioned earlier.
Exactly.
Because they already have the security cameras, the required square footage, and the high-speed internet.
Right. They have all the expensive stuff.
They are perfectly positioned to capture that government upside without relying on it to survive those critical first few months.
It is just a phenomenal example of asymmetric risk.
Yeah.
I mean, the downside is strictly capped at a few thousand rupees a month in operating costs. But the upside, especially if the bull case plays out and they secure those DDU-GKY batches, is massive.
It really is. So to summarize the sheer brilliance of this Arikirevula plan, the base case scenario projects a full return on investment, like complete payback on that initial 2 lakh capital in just 14 to 16 months.
It's just fantastic.
But if they hit the bull case, filling the classes and unlocking those government schemes, that payback period drops to an incredible 8 to 9 months.
Wow.
And they achieve this simply by leveraging existing hardware, tapping into established local political networks, and executing a very clever structural pivot.
It serves as such a powerful reminder that severe constraints often breed the most creative solutions. When you do not have the option to just throw money at a problem, you are forced to think structurally about every single resource you have at your disposal.
So for you listening, I really want to challenge you to apply this framework to your own projects, whatever they might be. Are there assets you already own that could turn a massive capital expenditure into an operating reserve?
Right?
Are there local relationships or community networks that you can leverage to bypass traditional marketing costs? What is your version of the yoga-style learning environment spin?
You know, if we step back and look at the broader implications, I think the most profound takeaway from this feasibility report isn't actually about computers.
Oh, really?
Or virtual assistants, or even rural India. It is a fundamental redefinition of what capital actually means.
How so?
We are conditioned by modern business culture to think of capital purely as money sitting in a bank account.
Right, hard cash.
But what this deep dive proves is that social trust, a captured pipeline of future employment, and even the strategic reframing of your own physical limitations, these are incredibly potent forms of capital.
That's a great point.
And in many ways, they are far more valuable and far harder for your competitors to replicate than a simple stack of cash.
That is so true. So the next time you find yourself staring at a problem, convinced you just don't have the budget to solve it, ask yourself, are you really out of capital, or are you just looking at the wrong kind of currency?